Nepal turned a corner on April 10, 2008, when it elected an assembly to create a new form of government. Voting was peaceful, an encouraging sign that the 10-year war between Maoist rebels and government forces was really over. Women voted in record numbers and with obvious enthusiasm. Many hope that a new political system will reduce discrimination and violence. The United Nations supported women's participation as part of efforts to involve them fully in Nepal's post-war reconstruction. Ram Devi Tamang led voter education sessions for women in her village in Kavre, 2 hours by car from Kathmandu. Some women lost their husbands during the civil war and suffered severely. My husband was killed in a motorcycle accident. After that, my in-laws beat me. The community abused me and I was denied my inheritance. I hope a new government will give priority to women's education, health, and security. Ram Devi works with Women Human Rights, an NGO that promotes dignity and livelihoods for widows who traditionally face cruel bias in Nepal. The term widow conveys a social stigma, so the group defines its members as single women.
The widows, after their husband's death, they are like physically they are alive, but socially they are dead, because the widows here in Nepal have to follow a lot of do's and don'ts. That makes them a kind of a second-class women in the society, and there are lots of social cultural system, like lots of ill cultural practices that widows have to face here, that makes them more vulnerable, more harassed in the society. That's why we started this organization. We started organizing the widows in the group, bringing them out from the house so that they could have get a platform to share their own experiences, share their own sorrows, griefs, whatever there comes, and turns their sorrows into their strength. That's why we've been doing this from 14 years.
Before I joined the group, I was mistreated in the village. I really suffered emotionally. Now, people have started to treat me better. Women had a lot at stake in the election. Single women in Nepal want the new constitution to ensure that they can inherit property and remarry. Other rights issues include caste discrimination, equality within the family, domestic violence, reproductive choice, and early marriage.
For women, equality is not enough. So we need equity. And equity not only in terms of kind of representation in the parliament, political bodies. Our constitution must recognize that women are doing useful work for the society by bringing up the next generation, and makes arrangements so that women's reproductive activities are facilitated. Only then, I think, a level playing field will be created.
In the months leading up to the election, women's rights activists challenged lawmakers to incorporate women's issues into law and the draft constitution. Various groups undertook community organizing to encourage women to vote.
I think women's voice will be heard this time because there are many women contestants and from different caste and ethnicity. And I feel that the election will bring women's voice. I'd like to make a request to all to participate in the election because this is a golden opportunity for all of us, and I'd like to request all to participate and decide the fate of the country. I feel that we should vote freely without just listening to what our elders say. We should vote for those who will be able to develop the most marginalized and the disadvantaged communities.
I won't be pressured by my family. I'll vote of my own free will. In the Kirtipur district of Kathmandu, Srijana Shrestha mobilized her neighbors to take part in the election. Women have the chance to include our issues in the new constitution. It's important for women to realize we have a say. I would like to see a constitution that gives women access to health care and girls an opportunity to attend good schools. For the widows in the group, human rights have a deep meaning. Santi's husband, a soldier, was killed in the war. The mother of two had to fight to keep her home. In the singles women's group, I learned it was my right to inherit property. Sunita was frequently beaten by her in-laws, who were often drunk. I don't want my daughter to face the same abuse I suffered. So I want her to get an education, same as my son. At first, the women didn't know what a constitution was or what an assembly was for. But we taught them that the election was about making a new constitution and that everyone could have a say. From then on, they realized that they had to participate so their voices would be heard. On election day in Kathmandu, cars were banned and some neighborhoods had a block party atmosphere. But voter turnout was heavy, and in the streets, many women voiced high hopes for the political future.
My mother asked me to bring her. She said she wants to use her right to vote.
In my generation, we didn't enjoy human rights. Now it's time for women to get their rights. It was hard during the war while our husbands were away. If someone gave birth, there was no one to attend. Now we have to vote to change the system and to provide care for pregnant women. In October 2000, the United Nations Security Council called for the full participation of women in post-conflict political processes. After Nepal's 2006 ceasefire, UN agencies and international donors supported a number of local initiatives to carry out Security Council Resolution 1325. The UN mission monitoring Nepal's ceasefire and helping to ensure a fair election supported these efforts.
The United Nations, but the international donor community is ready, must be ready to come in and enable whatever government is now formed for the period of while the Constituent Assembly is sitting, to show the people of Nepal there really is a peace dividend, and that it's a peace dividend that reaches previously marginalized groups, including women.
UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, supported women's NGOs, organized trainings for voter educators, and distributed educational material on women's participation.
There's a great aspiration among women's group here that everybody is looking at the post-conflict as a social transformation. They have been fighting for a long time, but this is a great moment when the political situation changes, that they wanted their rights to be recognized, and especially People's Movement 2005 April. That's time many women's groups, they came out, and they are the one who toppled down the autocratic government of the king.
During the war, insurgents shot Srijana's husband to death while she and her two children looked on. Her older son was severely traumatized.
Where she was very, depressed, and she was not even in a situation to talk about us, and she was in a kind of a depression. That's how we, bring Srijana out from her house and gave a lot of support and gave a lot of counseling, and gave a moral support, and as well as the other kind of support to, continue the education of our children. And that's how we trained Srijana.
5 years later, Srijana has become a respected community leader. She spent Elections Day helping people figure out where and how to vote. Srijana represents a generation of Nepali women who aspire to create a political system that guarantees equal rights. All the women from our community group came out to vote, and they brought other single women with them.